Alright folks, this is proof of life for a 1088 XEL build from the Brewing Academy. And we currently have employees in the building, so I've got a mask on, that's why I sound kind of muffled. We're putting in a new location for proof of life videos, just so you can see everything all at once and not get distracted by everything else. If you thought there were too many wires at the other location, there's fewer wires here, but certainly not eliminated wires. This is just a USB port. It's a nice little charger, and so we're going to put the S drive in it, and we're going to put the speakers in it, and then we're going to make sure it's on, and then we're going to turn this on, and then this on. Everything's going well there. The S drive, everything's on. So before we power up the 1088, let's look at the ports at the back. We've got Joy Port 1, Joy Port 2, an external MIDI connector, and this is to tell you that MIDI power is on. So if you're running a program and you're not getting audio, but this light is on, then you might want to check to see if you've got your speakers turned on or something like that. This is an ATR Disk swap button, and it's there for multi-disc images that you load from ATR. This is a PS2 mouse, PS2 keyboard, composite video out, S video out, RGB video out, DVI video out. This is audio out via 3.5mm mini phono plug, standard SIO, and a micro USB for SIO to PC, and then of course power. Right here we've got the compact flash hard drive. Uses any standard compact flash, although we recommend 15 megabytes per second or slower. This is just the indicators for input output. This is for SIO to PC, but it's also for anything that transmits over the SIO bus, right? So any read or any write, VGATE indicates it's on. It's the blocks off overscan when you're using digital out, and then stereo, and then compact flash access. The power button's right there. Everything's connected. So what I'm going to do, and then of course standard cartridge port. Cartridges, the label is on this side. Label is on this side. Cartridge front right here. So we're going to put this in. Because, you know, there we go. Alright, then we're going to back this up just a little bit so you can see everything. And then we're going to power it on. That little heavy plate Atari today is courtesy of the MIDI. It's got an internal S2 synthesizer, and it's an option. It's called Dream Blaster S2. Looks like this. It's made by a nice place in Belgium. We import them for 1088 builds, as well as for people to put in their 8-bits that aren't 1088s. So what you may have noticed is that the system booted up, and it booted straight to Sparta-DOS. It loaded the VBXE driver, so that you know that VBXE is present. We'll see some other ways that that's present as well. You'll also notice that it copied files for Sparta Commander to its proper places. The reason I do that is because I find it is a very nice graphical way to interface with the system. It also gives me a nice way to demonstrate that VBXE is fully loaded and operating. So you notice that Sophia blanked out. That is completely normal. when VBXE is operating. Because when VBXE is doing VBXE only software, it blanks out every other video out and you only have it through RGB. And so we get a little closer here, you see that it's operating correctly. We're going to quit out of this, and we're going to use this opportunity to cycle through the different video. And so this is AV, so that's composite, and this is S video, so a little sharper. The monitor's a little old, so it's kind of foggy, but that is not output. That is that's not the 1088, that's the monitor. And then it's going to cycle through VGA, which we don't have connected, and then it's a PAL, so it's going to try and pop up PAL television, and then we're going to go back to RGB. Now while we're here, you notice that the lights are indicated here. So stereo's on, VGATE's not on, so we need to turn that back on, and SIO is active because the SIO to PC and the S drive is active. Okay, let's do a couple more things now. Let's go, I'm going to press F12 and go into the BIOS for the 1088. And this is the main screen for the 1088, and this is where you control what kind of memory upgrade it has. You can do stock XL, 320K Rambo, 576 CompuShop, or the 1 meg Rambo. I leave it on the 1 meg Rambo because that is, there's no reason why not to. It's the most compatible. But if you have some upgrades that want a CompuShop, or they want only a 64K XL, there you go. Now, here's the really powerful thing with the Ultimate and the 1088 is change the OS. Let's say you want to run a 400, 800 only file. There you go. It's not going to let you run PAL unless you have PAL Antic and PAL GTIA installed, but it will allow you access to get to those 800 only files that normally you'd have to load a translator, cartridge, or disk. If you want an Altera OS or the XEGS, those are there and available for you. Basic can be standard Basic C, or you can have Altera Basic, you can have the Atari Assembler Editor, or CineAssembler. You can also have it so that the Basic is turned off by option, which is, you know, just your normal thing, or it's disabled permanently until you turn it back on. XEGS is grayed out because the jumper on the Ultimate 1 meg is not engaged, or we have not set it for XEGS OS. SparDOS is enabled, but one of the things I want to show you is this great graphical OS that John Holliday, the person that wrote the firmware for the Ultimate 1 meg and many other things, great programmer, great person, lives in England, does a bang-up job doing a lot of coding for the 8-bits. Also wrote a great word processing program called The Last Word. If you don't use it, you really should. So graphical OS, I'm going to enable that. You may have noticed that it disables SpartaDOS X. That's fine. I'm going to press B to save and boot. It's going to boot into the graphical OS. Now, you see the mouse moves here. It doesn't do a lot yet, but it shows that it's a very powerful OS and it can be fully featured, and the space is already there so that when you upgrade, or when he upgrades the system, it's right there for you. Okay? Now, to get out of this, I also use this to show you that the mouse is working, but I also use it to show you this mouse port select button here. I've got it set to port 2. If for some reason the stuff that you use that wants a mouse wants port 1, you turn it off and then turn it to green, which is port 1. Turn it off, turn it to red, which is port 2. That's very important to know, because if you have that enabled and you've also got a program that's looking to joyport 1 for access, and you move the mouse, then it's going to get all kinds of joystick access. So if you're not using it actively, turn it off, or realize that when you get kind of weird sporadic access on the joyport, probably is that. I'm going to press F12, get back to the BIOS. I'm going to re-enable SpartaDOS, which automatically disables the graphical OS. Boot to loader is that you're only going to the loader whenever you turn on the 1088, and the loader is how you load ATRs or XEX files off of the FAT32 partition. But you've got SpartaDOS engaged, you want to boot to it and use the computer. I think that should be disabled by default, which it is, but if you want to turn it on, great. Want to make sure that 8K ROMs run from the cartridge port. This needs to be enabled. You can set the time and date from here, but the best way to set it is from the SpartaDOS prompt, where time and date, respectively, are the commands. VBXE, this is where the VBXE will be addressed. This is the most compatible, but sometimes you need something conflicts and you need to change it to the next one or disable it entirely. Stereo Pokey is engaged and GTIA is enabled. The PBI BIOS is enabled because that's the only way you can have hard drive access. PBI device is 0. If we had a RAPIDUS installed, this would be changed because the RAPIDUS wants device 0. A RAPIDUS is not installed primarily because it conflicts with the Ultimate 1 meg firmware and the Ultimate 1 meg as designed. And until they reconcile those problems, then I don't install RAPIDUS in 1088 builds. But this is able to have a RAPIDUS because it has the Compact Flash 3 XL version, which is physically allows the RAPIDUS to be installed on the 6502. The hard disk is enabled. Boot drive is D5. Now, why is it D5? Well, my opinion is that most people back in the day and now had 4 floppy drives. They didn't have much more than that. If they had more than one, they had 2, 3, or 4. Past that, you're getting into hard drive territory, and so that should be the first hard drive that you boot to. You can redirect off D1, which you should have enabled, especially since you have a hard drive, and you don't have to physically be on D1 in order to boot the system. If you don't want to write or allow writes to the hard drive, maybe you're trying some software that you're not too sure about, then lock the hard drive. Slave drive is disabled because there's only one Compact Flash card on this system. If you want to change that and upgrade to a dual hard drive system, then you can enable this and replace the interface that's currently set on it. High-speed I/O is engaged for floppy drives and PC-Link, or what we call SIO to PC. They're enabled on all 4 floppy drives. And the SIO sound is for hard drive access, ATR access, as well as the physical SIO. The reason for that is I think if you're accessing the SIO bus and using an Atari, then you should be hearing SIO sounds. When I don't hear them, I think something's not working, and so I leave it enabled by default. This tells you another screenshot of the system. It's not anything that we can set, but it is a scan by the BIOS of the system to sort of demonstrate that things are installed. This is version 3.1 of FJC's stuff. We have the plug-in for the Compact Flash. The version of that plug-in is 1.3. It's set up as an XLXE. We're running at 1.79 megahertz. It's NTSC. VBXE is present, and the stereo is present. BIOS menu is Help plus Reset, or on the 1088, it's F12. Cold boot is disabled. You can enable it if you need a true cold boot. The ROM BIOS, the Ultimate BIOS shows up on that. Flashing for the ROM BIOS is enabled, or for SpartaDOS is enabled. If you want to make sure that doesn't get corrupted, disable it. But remember, when you want to upgrade firmware, you need to enable this. This does not mean that the joystick is disabled. It means that using the joystick to navigate through the firmware is disabled. I have this disabled by default for builds for two reasons. One, we're using a mouse on it, and so if we set it to the wrong port, then we'll have sporadic erroneous input. And two, I like to use the stick pick burner on the port, and if that's left in there by default, then I go into BIOS and it's flip-flopping around everything. I just turn it off. Color is set 8. You can change it to whatever you like. I do it to 8 because that's the way I like to look at it, and so every system we build here, TBA, looks like this. Sound, will it make sound in the firmware, not sound in the system? Screensaver, does it do a ultimate or 1088 XEL screensaver when it goes to standby? This is for RAPIDUS if you want it installed. And all of these keys here in the brackets can be used on any screen. What we're going to do right now is we're going to save, and then we're going to press L for loader. Loader gets us into the FAT32 and FAT16 partitions of the compact flash that's installed right now. Right now we've got a 4 gig SanDisk compact flash installed. This is just the standard one that I use, and I also use it for testing. These are the different partitions on it. Now, why are there different partitions on this? FAT32 is universally accessed through the loader. You can also use it on Windows to copy files, or even Windows or Macintosh to copy files over. I use a Mac and Parallels, so I got the best of both worlds there. The FAT16 partitions, you can also use those to copy to and from, but with the SpartaDOS FAT16.sys loader, you can access them through SpartaDOS. So if you've ever felt that conundrum of how do I get a file from the internet onto the Atari and then onto SpartaDOS and then copy to an Atari disk file or Atari disk floppy or something like that, that's the way you do it, the FAT16. And we'll be looking at how that works in a few seconds. So let's access the FAT32 partition. This is where you load your ATRs and XEX files. I've also got it set here so that we can demonstrate how the ATR disk swap button works. And the way that happens is a lot of the games for the 8-bit had multiple floppy disks, right? But how do you tell the computer that you're using a virtual drive and it needs to flip over the virtual disk? The way you do that is you make a map file, which tells the computer where the files are. You load that map file, and we're going to load it. Okay, part 1 is on the front side of the disk, or disk 1, or wherever. It loads, but we're pressed return, so nope. So what we do now is we go to the ATR disk swap button. I'm going to press it. You see the light lights, so you know it's engaged. I'm going to press return. Light goes out, and it starts loading the second disk. Okay? This is just a little demo that gives you some sound and music of some graphics. It's cute, but since it's multiple disk, it allows me to show you that ATR disk swap function. Right, so that shows you the loader. We need to go back into the loader. The reason being is, if you'll notice, now those files have D1 and D2 next to them. So we need to at the buttons as I press play. See? You'll notice that it's going on. I can't play a lot of it, or YouTube flags the as I said, copyright infringement, which is just strange. Okay, but I'm going to hit space again. Okay. Again, MIDI is active. The player is active. shows that MIDI is working. Now, we don't install by default the Dream Blaster. That's an extra fee, but it's there if you want it. We're going to escape out of this. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to have 12 out of this. Boot back RAPIDUS. The last thing I want to do is demonstrate that the cartridge port is working. We're just going to use a standard cartridge that I got from Atari Age. And so to do that, I'm going to power off. I'm going to fit the cartridge into the port just like this. Okay, power it on. You're going to see the logo. Hear the MIDI. Okay. And then one thing you need to do is RAPIDUS acts as a cartridge. Remember, if it's enabled, it's going to grab the cartridge port first. So we need to disable it. Then we need to boot. And I'll be back in a second because somebody didn't put the joystick back where it belongs. So I have to grab the joystick so that I can use it. Alright, so you're probably saying, well, why did you have to go get a joystick? There was something plugged into the port. And yes, there was, but since this system is usually placed on a shelf somewhere, we sell extension cables. Now, while I was away, you may have noticed that Beef Drop popped up. I'm just gonna... Okay, so far, we know that the fire button works and left and right works. We know that up and down works. We also know that I can't play this game with a down. Okay, but shows you a couple of things. Shows you the cartridge port is functioning. Shows you that the joystick is working. I'm going to turn this off. Okay, I'm going to just pop this right back out so you saw how that worked. So, what have we demonstrated? So far, we've demonstrated that the system is stable and that the MIDI works, the disk swap ATR button works, the mouse works, the mouse port select works, the keyboard works, composite video works, S-video works, RGB out works, the VBXE works, the Sophia works, stock SIO works, and the compact flash drive works as advertised. Alright, I think I turned this off in the middle, so I will stitch these two together, and then I'll put this up on YouTube and send you a link. Thanks for your business, and enjoy. Okay, folks, we're back. I need to splice in a couple of things because camera shut off. Technology, what are you going to do? Alright, so if I'm not mistaken, did not show you the floppy drive access. So, or the SIO access, I should say. So one of the things that you may notice is that booted up a disk file. That's because the file is set for the S drive, and that's just an ATR there. What I want to do, so I'm going to go turn RAPIDUS back on, because we had it off for the cartridge list. Turn that off, press B and boot. And we're just going to say yes to VBXE. Okay, now there's two things here. I want you to notice that the FAT-FS driver has been loaded, and I want you to notice that there is something loaded in drive 1 and drive 2 for the S Drive Max. Now remember, the S Drive Max, and by the way, we make these and sell these here at the Brewing Academy. Remember, the S Drive Max, just like the Fuji Drive or the SIO2 PC or anything else, is acting like virtual floppies. So if that's the case, then I should be able to go A directory, and it will show me everything that's on the A drive. Now remember, I got cut off there, but when I got cut off, I was unmounting the ATRs from any internal drives from the loader. Make sure you do that, or you're going to have conflicts and you'll have erroneous data. I can also type D2 for B. Okay, D2 for B, enter, do a directory, and voila. So this operates just like a floppy drive. If it's got an auto boot in it, it's going to do that. As long as SpartaDOS is not engaged, because remember, SpartaDOS is a cartridge, even though it's not really a cartridge physically installed in here, as I said before. The last thing I wanted to show you, really it's the last thing, so I wanted to show you the FAT16 access. So I set FAT16 to drive N. Now you'll notice it's accessing the compact flash drive, and it's doing it because it's a little slow, but that's, you know, that's a function of the software, and it's really some pretty good miracle that it's doing this and accessing it. The reason why it's accessing now as opposed to just saying N is because I have it set the prompt, and so it needs to read what directory it's in. You'll notice that's N. We're going to do a check disk, and that's the FAT-A that you saw in the loader. So this is the 16, the FAT16, and so I can copy files from my computer, Mac or Windows, and then access them from SpartaDOS, and I can copy anything over that I need to. Text files, XEX files, COM files, whatever, to get it to the Atari itself, inside the operating system of the Atari. So that's a pretty cool thing, and it's just a matter of formatting a partition on the compact flash drive. It's FAT16. In addition to the ATR, sorry, not the ATR, the we're going to go to the loader here so I can remember. The APT, Atari Partition Table. That's the Atari partitions, the Atari hard drive partitions. The FAT32 is only accessible through the loader. The FAT16 is accessible through the loader and through SpartaDOS, as long as that driver is loaded. Okay? So, sorry for the disjointedness. It's like attempt 4052 to make this video. For some reason, COVID, my kids are here,